The sound engineer. Maya Chen pressed her ear against the cold metal housing of the tertiary propulsion system, ignoring the curious looks from the Valak engineers standing nearby. Their four eyes blinked in synchronization, mandibles clicking in what Maya had learned was their species' equivalent of skeptical muttering. Human Chen, we have run 17 diagnostic protocols, Chief Engineer Kovacs said, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into smooth English. The systems are operating within normal parameters. Maya held up a finger, asking for silence. Her eyes closed as she listened intently to the subtle rhythms of the massive engine. The Celestial Harmony was the pride of the Galactic Cooperative, a research vessel staffed by 11 different species, and one human. Maya was the token representative of Earth, included more as a political courtesy than for any expected contribution. There, she said finally, tapping a specific section of the housing. This harmonic regulator is off by about 3 milliseconds in its cycle. It's subtle, but it's causing a cascading resonance that will eventually damage the quantum alignment. Kovacs's upper eyes narrowed while his lower pair consulted his handheld diagnostic tool. The instruments detect no abnormality. Your instruments aren't designed to detect this specific pattern, Maya explained patiently. Humans evolved as predator-prey animals with highly specialized auditory processing. We can detect patterns that your technology isn't calibrated for. The Valak engineer's exoskeleton shifted colors slightly, a sign of irritation that Maya had learned to recognize during her 6 months aboard. I fail to understand why the cooperative insisted on including a primitive species representative on our engineering team. Maya bit back a retort. This wasn't the first time she'd faced this kind of prejudice. Humans were newcomers to the galactic community, and most alien species viewed them as technological infants, barely a century into space travel while others had been exploring the stars for millennia. Just let me show you, she said instead, moving to a control terminal. I can isolate the frequency. Before Kovacs could object, the ship-wide alert system activated with a piercing wail. The tertiary propulsion system that Maya had been examining suddenly shut down automatically, triggering emergency protocols throughout the vessel. Status report. Kovacs demanded, his 4 limbs working furiously across multiple interfaces. Primary harmonic regulator has failed, one of the other Valak engineers reported. System detected a critical resonance pattern and initiated emergency shutdown. Kovacs's exoskeleton paled. That's impossible. The diagnostics didn't catch it, Maya finished. But I did. The engineering bay became a flurry of activity as the crew worked to contain the damage. The Celestial Harmony shuddered as it dropped out of FTL travel, leaving them stranded in an unmapped region of space. Captain Zertal's voice echoed through the comm system. Engineering, report. Why have we dropped to sublight? Kovacs hesitated, his mandibles working nervously before responding. Harmonic regulator failure, Captain. We're assessing the damage. Estimated repair time. The chief engineer looked at his team, who all indicated uncertainty. Standard repair protocols for this system typically required a specialized facility. Unknown, Captain, possibly several cycles. We may need to request assistance. Maya stepped forward. Captain, this is Engineer Chen. I believe I can repair this without external assistance. A moment of silence followed. Engineer Chen, the human. Yes, Captain. The harmonic regulator failed due to a resonance issue I detected before the shutdown. With your permission, I'd like to attempt a repair using a modified approach. Another pause. Chief Engineer Kovacs, your assessment. Kovacs's exoskeleton shifted through several colors before settling on a reluctant blue-green. The human did. Identify the issue before our instruments. I recommend we allow the attempt while preparing a distress signal as backup. Proceed, Engineer Chen. Keep me informed. Maya didn't waste time on satisfaction at this small victory. Instead, she turned to the engineering team. I need a portable audio amplifier, a frequency modulator, and access to the harmonic regulator's base programming. The Valaks exchanged confused glances, but began gathering the requested items. As they worked, Maya explained her plan. The regulator is designed to maintain a specific pattern of energy flow through the propulsion system. When that pattern deviates, even slightly, it creates a resonance that compounds over time. This is basic engineering, Kovacs said. But the fail-safes should have prevented critical resonance. They would have, if the resonance was following expected patterns, Maya replied. But this is more like, well, like a cancer of sound. It's mutating as it progresses. She connected the audio amplifier to the system and began recording the sounds of the adjacent components that were still functioning. The aliens watched with increasing curiosity as she worked, especially when she began humming along with certain frequencies, occasionally making notes on her tablet. After 2 hours of work, Maya had created what looked like a primitive music composition, a series of waveforms arranged in parallel. This is the healthy rhythm of your propulsion system, she explained. And this, she pointed to a slightly different pattern, is what the damaged regulator was producing before failure. How does this help us repair the physical damage? One of the junior engineers asked. We're not going to repair it. We're going to replace its function, Maya said. Your technology is designed to be adaptive, right? What if we use the remaining regulators to compensate for the missing one by adjusting their rhythms? Kovacs's color shifted to a thoughtful purple. Impossible. The system requires precise balance across all components. Not impossible, Maya countered. Just different. Look. She pulled up the ship's specifications on a larger display. Human music is built on the principle that different instruments can create harmony together, even when playing different parts. Your propulsion system works on a similar principle. She began programming the new set of parameters into the remaining regulators, effectively teaching them to play a different song that would compensate for the missing component. The alien engineers watched with increasing interest as her unorthodox approach took shape. This violates standard engineering protocols, Kovacs noted, though his tone had lost its earlier dismissiveness. Human history is full of engineering solutions that violated protocols. Maya replied without looking up from her work. Sometimes the rulebook doesn't have all the answers. After 6 hours of continuous work, Maya was ready to test her solution. Captain Zertal and several other senior officers had gathered in engineering to witness the attempt. If this fails, the captain warned, we may lose additional systems. If we do nothing, we're stuck here for weeks, Maya countered. And I don't think any of us want to be stranded in unmapped space. The captain's 6-fingered hand waved permission. Proceed. Maya activated her modified system. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, gradually, the remaining regulators began to adjust their frequencies, creating a new harmonic pattern that spread throughout the propulsion system. The displays showed energy flow stabilizing, then strengthening. The patterns are harmonizing, one of the Valak engineers said in surprise. The system is accepting the new parameters. The ship's lights brightened as power was restored to non-essential systems. A low hum built throughout engineering as the propulsion system came fully online. Engineering to bridge, Kovacs reported, his voice carrying an unmistakable note of amazement. Propulsion system restored. We can resume FTL travel at your command. Well done, Captain Zertal replied. Especially you, Engineer Chen. It seems we have underestimated human ingenuity. Maya allowed herself a small smile. Thank you, Captain. But this was just applying human musical principles to mechanical systems. The real test will be how it holds up under sustained operation. Nevertheless, Kovacs said, his exoskeleton now a respectful shade of deep blue, you have demonstrated value that our diagnostics missed. Perhaps there is something to be learned from your primitive perspective. Coming from Kovacs, this was high praise indeed. Maya nodded acknowledgement, too tired to feel anything but relief that her solution had worked. As the celestial harmony resumed its journey, Maya found herself surrounded by curious alien engineers, all eager to understand her methodology. For the first time since joining the crew, she wasn't the token human. She was simply Engineer Chen, who heard the music in the machinery when no one else could. The Symphony of Stars. 3 weeks after the propulsion system incident, Maya Chen had noticed a subtle shift in how the alien crew treated her. The dismissive glances had been replaced by curious observation. Several engineers had even requested her assistance with routine maintenance, eager to understand her unorthodox auditory approach to mechanical systems. But not everyone was convinced. Science Officer Treleth, a Korean with a reputation for rigid adherence to established principles, made her skepticism known during the morning briefing. While Engineer Chen's creative solution was effective in our recent emergency, she said, her feathered crest rippling with barely concealed disdain, we cannot allow human intuition to replace proven scientific methodology. Maya kept her expression neutral. Among her crewmates, the Koreans were perhaps the most resistant to human inclusion in the cooperative. Their species had developed space travel 8,000 years before humans had even developed agriculture. No one is suggesting replacement, Science Officer, Maya replied evenly. Only supplementation. Captain Zertal's compound eyes swiveled between them. This discussion is academic. Engineer Chen has earned her place on this crew through demonstrated competence. The matter might have ended there if not for what happened next. As the Celestial Harmony continued its scientific survey of the Ophiuchi cluster, the sensors detected an unusual phenomenon, a spatial anomaly that defied conventional analysis. It appears to be a localized distortion in the fabric of space-time, Treleth reported, her feathers now standing rigid with scientific excitement. Unlike anything in our database, the anomaly presented as a swirling vortex of energy approximately 2 kilometers wide, with bizarre radiation patterns that interfered with the ship's navigational systems. As the science team gathered data, the ship automatically maintained a safe distance. Maya was not part of the primary observation team, but found herself drawn to the sensor lab during her off-duty hours. Something about the anomaly's data patterns tickled at her mind, a familiarity she couldn't quite place. Computer, she said quietly, working at a terminal away from the main team, convert the anomaly's radiation pattern to audible frequencies. The computer complied, filling her headphones with an eerie, undulating sound. Maya closed her eyes, listening intently. There was definitely a pattern there, not random noise, but something almost musical. After several hours of analysis, Maya approached Science Officer Treleth with her findings. The Korean's feathers flattened against her skull, a sign of irritation at the interruption. Officer Treleth, I believe the anomaly is producing a coherent pattern, Maya said, offering her data tablet. When converted to audio, there's a distinct rhythmic structure. Treleth made a dismissive chirping sound. Engineer Chen, not everything can be reduced to your species' primitive obsession with sound patterns. With respect, Maya persisted, the pattern correlates with the navigational interference. I think it's not just interfering with our systems, it's communicating. This caught the attention of the other scientists in the lab. Treleth reluctantly reviewed Maya's data. These correlations are interesting, she admitted finally, but inconclusive. We need more substantive evidence before diverting resources to this theory. Maya left the lab frustrated but undeterred. In her quarters, she continued analyzing the anomaly's patterns, gradually building a comprehensive frequency map. The more she studied it, the more convinced she became that the spatial distortion was not a natural phenomenon, but something designed, or perhaps even alive. Her opportunity to prove this theory came unexpectedly. 3 days into their observation of the anomaly, the Celestial Harmony received a distress signal from a Thalaxian mining vessel. The small ship had ventured too close to the anomaly and become trapped in its gravitational influence, its systems failing as the crew desperately called for assistance. We cannot risk our vessel, First Officer Ginner argued during the emergency briefing. The anomaly's effect on our navigation would likely trap us as well. The Thalaxians have less than 6 hours of life support remaining, Captain Zertal countered. The cooperative does not abandon those in need. Captain, Maya interjected, I may have a solution. All eyes turned to her, some curious, others skeptical. Maya quickly explained her theory that the anomaly's interference followed predictable patterns that could be mapped and potentially counteracted. If I'm right, we can create a harmonic shield, essentially a counter-frequency to the anomaly's emissions. It would allow us to approach safely and extract the mining vessel. Science Officer Treleth's feathers bristled. This is speculation based on insufficient data. Do you have an alternative that would allow rescue? Captain Zertal asked directly. After a moment of tense silence, Treleth's feathers settled. No, Captain. Then we proceed with Engineer Chen's plan. You have 2 hours to implement your solution. Maya worked frantically with a team that included both engineering and science personnel. Using the shift shield generators, they created a system that would produce counter-frequencies to the anomaly's emissions, essentially playing an opposing melody that would neutralize its effects. This approach is fundamentally similar to ancient human noise cancellation technology, Maya explained as they worked, but operating on quantum rather than acoustic levels. When the system was ready, the celestial harmony cautiously approached the anomaly. The mining vessel was now clearly visible, tumbling slowly as it was drawn inexorably toward the center of the distortion. Activating harmonic shield, Maya announced, her fingers dancing across the control interface. The effect was immediate and visible. The swirling energies of the anomaly seemed to part around the research vessel, creating a clear pathway toward the stranded miners. On the bridge, the navigation system stabilized, no longer affected by the interference. It's working, Kovacs exclaimed, his exoskeleton glowing with an excited blue luminescence. As they penetrated deeper into the anomaly's influence, Maya continuously adjusted the counter-frequencies, treating the process like conducting an orchestra. Each section of the anomaly required slightly different harmonics to navigate safely. Tractor beam range in 30 seconds, reported the tactical officer. Phylaxian life signs stable but declining. The rescue proceeded with tense precision. As the tractor beam locked onto the mining vessel, Maya detected a change in the anomaly's patterns. It was adapting, shifting its frequencies to overcome their countermeasures. It's reacting to us, she warned. We need to modify our approach. Instead of fighting against the new patterns, Maya made a split-second decision. She adjusted their harmonic shield to complement rather than counter the anomaly's emissions, creating harmony instead of opposition. What are you doing? Treleth demanded. This contradicts your entire approach. Sometimes you don't fight the current, Maya replied, concentrating intensely. Sometimes you have to dance with it. The effect was remarkable. The anomaly's swirling energies seemed to calm, creating a stable corridor that allowed both vessels to withdraw safely. As they pulled away with the rescued miners, the anomaly resumed its previous patterns, as if acknowledging their departure. In the aftermath of the successful rescue, the bridge crew sat in stunned silence. It was Captain Zertal who finally spoke. Engineer Chen, your understanding of these patterns saved 12 lives today. Science Officer Treleth approached Maya, her feathers arranged in what humans had learned was a posture of formal respect. Your approach was unorthodox, but effective. I would be interested in collaborating on further study of this phenomenon. Coming from Treleth, this was tantamount to a full apology and acknowledgement of Maya's methods. Maya nodded acceptance of the olive branch. In the following days, the science and engineering teams worked together to better understand the anomaly, which they now believe might be a form of non-biological intelligence that communicated through complex energy patterns. Maya's ability to perceive and interpret these patterns proved invaluable, and her status among the crew elevated from tolerated outsider to essential specialist. One evening, as Maya sat in the observation lounge staring at the distant stars, Captain Zertal joined her. You have given us much to consider, Engineer Chen, the captain said. When the cooperative included humans in our mission, many questioned the wisdom of bringing such a young species into deep space exploration. And now? Maya asked. Now I believe we are witnessing why diverse perspectives strengthen us all. Your species hears the music of the universe in ways ours cannot. That is not primitive, it is merely different. And difference, properly applied, becomes advantage. Maya smiled, turning back to the viewport where the stars streamed past in luminous rivers of light. To her ears, they had always sung the cosmic symphony. Now, finally, her alien colleagues were beginning to hear it too. Every species brings its own instrument to the orchestra, Captain, she said. We just needed the right moment for our solo. Outside, the celestial harmony continued its journey through the stars, living up to its name more fully than its designers could have ever imagined. Its human engineer helping translate the mechanical rhythms of the universe for all aboard to understand.